another minute.
Hello, and welcome to Visual Radio. My guest today is author Gary DeCarlo with his new book, The Bluebird Effect. Wait a minute, that's next week. You're Gary DeCarlo, singer, vocalist extraordinaire.
Yes, and you're probably one of the only ones that know that, besides you.
Na Na Hey Hey Kiss 'Em Goodbye, classic #1 hit song that is now a standard in stadiums.
Yes.
Amazing. Did that amaze you when you started, the phenomenon started?
Absolutely. No one could predict that. No one had any idea it would be as large as it turned out, especially, like you said, with the stadiums. Not only football, baseball, but every sport imaginable. The only thing I haven't heard it done with is maybe golf, but I mean, it's hockey, everything. It's nice.
Get a copy to Phil Mickelson. Maybe when Tiger's playing, he'll just put it on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, I had something from the LSU. That was their song also. LSU Tigers, the basketball team. They sent a letter and asking for permission for it, and it was given to them, and then they sent a copy, a cassette copy.
So they have to ask permission before
Yeah,
they can...
they gotta. Yeah, that's what happened with a lot of the rap things. They didn't come out because they were, talking about shooting people and stuff, cops and stuff like that. So they didn't get the okay for it.
Oh, sure, it would lend itself well to kissing someone off in a gangster movie. I get it.
Yeah,
Wow.
Absolutely. I mean, we do have a few that were done with rap, but they were done
Tastefully.
Yeah, exactly. Yep.
Bit classiness. Well, thank you for taking the trek up.
Oh.
You spent hours on the road to come to you, and we're humbled. It's great.
I appreciate you having me.
Gary, because before I let Joe interrogate you, I just want to say I am a huge pop fan, and outside of the enormous hook that everyone latches onto, it's the melody and the sentiment that grabs me. It's just such a beautiful melody and sentiment. That is a hook, a killer hook, with a killer song, with a great love message,
Yeah.
And I don't know if people focus on it. They just enjoy it so much, they don't realize that this is a real pop masterpiece.
No, well, the newer generation, I think, doesn't even realize that there were verses, because they basically grew up just hearing the hook. If you think about it, just the stadiums, they just heard na 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 na, that was it. But yeah, you're right. Even when the song was sung, there was someone in mind at the time that I was singing to at the time.
Maybe you should do a version with just instrumental of the na 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 na, and so just your version of a vocal pop song, and then don't sing the hook, have the instruments doing the thing, just to emphasize the great melody.
Oh, the melody,
you have,
yeah.
and the great song you have. Mm-hmm. It could be a hit all over again.
Well, I have plans to do something, but it hasn't materialized just yet. But the way I want to do it, it hasn't been done at all, and I think that it would be listened to in a whole new light. You know what I mean? It would still encompass the hook and everything, but be done a little bit more today, maybe a little more danceable. I have two versions, a funk version and an up-tempo version. So we'll see what happens with that.
It's a tremendous song, and we discussed it on the previous show, and there's so much I could spend 2 hours just talking about the song alone. But I think we want to get into who you are. Who's the guy who was part of this amazing phenomenon which continues today. And I'll conclude my initial intro here with saying PBS has Gary performing this, and as I said before on this show, I thought it was the record and you were lip syncing. It is that well produced to the new version.
Yeah, the band was excellent. I said this even, I think, on the radio interview, that the people there were great. The band was excellent, the background singers were good, and the sound people were great. And, I enjoyed it. The audience they were outrageous. They were great. They were all standing up and, singing and stuff. And yeah, it makes you feel pretty good to realize that amount of people in that one space, could get that energized.
Joe, did you see it?
I did. I saw that, and it was really a really exclamation point at the end of that 60s style program that they were putting on at
That's
PBS.
what they wanted. They wanted me to close the show because I guess of the goodbye, you know.
What can you say after that?
Yeah,
You know, I
exactly.
mean, it was very dynamic, and it really, the audience was up and chanting along with you, and you could see that it's just like it works to close out a baseball or football or soccer game or whatever. It certainly works within the concert framework even better, where it started and where it began, and what it all means, and how the audience was really just captivated and joining in with you on that. And of course, one of the questions here that we face is, you know, as Joe said, who is Gary DeCarlo? And a lot of the confusion results from a couple of things, one of which is your solo career, which you had a lot of records out, was under a different name. It was under a matinee idol name.
Yeah, it was, I used the name of Garrett Scott, and I wrote under my original name, Gary DeCarlo. And I thought at the time that that's what you did, you know, you had a different name to perform. You know, I didn't look at it as anything other than that, you know?
You had to get a stage name
Yeah,
for you
exactly.
as a singer.
Yeah.
Yvonne DeCarlo's son just kept the real name.
Yeah,
and
I
just
should have, you're right, you're right.
Spread the rumor.
Yeah, I understand that now, but not back then.
The Addams Family, son of the Addams Family, singing this song. Oh, was it Munsters?
To the Monsters.
Munsters she was.
So that is part of the confusion over your
Yeah.
career. And then, of course, another part is that your most famous song, which you sing on and which you co-wrote, you know, Kiss 'Em Goodbye, was put out not under your name, Gary DeCarlo, and not under your stage name, Garrett Scott, but under the name of a fictitious group, Steam.
Absolutely.
So it's kind of almost like your career contributions. It can certainly confuse people trying to figure out exactly who's doing what, and that's what we're hoping to do with you here today on Visual Radio, is get a little bit of the facts behind the song Na Na Hey Hey Kiss 'Em Goodbye and how it came about, and also go through some of the rest of the records you recorded during your career.
Well, I'd have to go back to, let's see, it was 1968, I was in with Paul. I had brought something around New York City, and I had spent my last $2,500 to go into the studio to make something, and I said, I'm gonna give it a shot and see what happens. So, went into the studio, and then I brought it around, and I played it for people, and just so happened that I was in the building and I went to Buddha Records, and Paul was in the office at the time, and I walked in and I said, hey Paul, man, how you doing? You know, we hadn't seen each other in a while. We knew each other since I was probably 14 years old, 15 years old, and he said, you know, what are you doing here? And I explained to him that I had a tape, and I said to him, you know, you want to listen to it? So I left it. And I was coming into New York on a regular basis at that time because I was trying to make connections.
From Connecticut, where you lived?
From Connecticut, yeah. And I started seeing Paul pretty much on a regular basis. We would hang out together. You know, I'd go to sessions with him and stuff. And late at night, if he was writing something, I would probably wind up falling asleep on the couch. It'd be 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, I swear. And he'd just be still out there banging away. And, you know, we got to talking, and I said to him, you know, would you be interested in doing something with what I brought up, you know, with me? And he said, absolutely. So at the time, he was with a fellow named Bob Reno. And Bob Reno got a job at Mercury Records. He became vice president at Mercury Records in New York City. Mm-hmm. And he got office space for Paul, and that's when the thing started to take shape. Paul at the time had done a group called the Peppermint Rainbow, and they had a single out called Will You Be Staying After Sunday?
Which sounded like Spanky and Our Gang.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And it went, you know, pretty good. I guess it sold, I don't know, 500,000 or whatever, something like that. Yeah. And, you know, I got to know them, and I put a song on their album. And
I mean, you wrote a song for the group?
yeah, with a fellow named Tom Green, I think his name was. But anyway, it was called Sierra, and it was on the album.
It was on the Peppermint
And
Rainbow. Okay.
again, Paul, we were waiting because he had several people that he was dealing with. So I had to wait my turn in order to come in. So they wanted me to go on the road with the Peppermint Rainbow because they felt that they weren't energetic enough or something on stage. I forget what it was. We were having coffee or something in one of these restaurants,
Yeah.
and they said to me, "You got to go on it." So I went on the road as a road manager with them, which didn't last very long, about a month. And then I came back because I had to push my session off to be with them.
So you were trying to polish them for their tour,
right,
basically.
for what basically they were doing on stage. And then I came back, and then I missed my turn, so I had to wait. And my turn was coming, so at that point, we started putting feelers out for songs for me.
Yeah.
And this guy, Erwin Schuster from Screen Gems, brought over a few things for me. He brought over Neil Sedaka, which was working on a groovy thing, and a thing called Sugar Sugar. And as soon as I heard working on a groovy thing, I said, I love it, I want to do it. So we figured, okay, now we needed a couple other sides. We wound up picking like a Van McCoy thing, and what was the other one? Like I said, Sugar Sugar, and the Larry Weiss song, which was Sweet Laura Lee.
Sweet Laura. Oh, that was
Right.
Larry Weiss who wrote that.
Larry Weiss,
Okay,
yeah, who wrote Rhinestone Cowboy.
Yeah.
We got to be friends, but that's another story.
Okay.
So we decided to. He said that the record company loved all the four sides, and they felt that they were all A sides. Now, to me, the A side was working on a groovy thing.
That was definitely the record.
Definitely
That was
the
yours.
record.
Yeah.
Now, what happened was, Erwin went back and told the Fifth Dimension that he had heard the record, and I guess he felt it was a decent record. And the singer at the time, what I was told was that he had growths on his vocal cords, so they couldn't go into the studio to record something new. So they said to him, if you're going to pull something off your album, you better do it quickly because theirs is already set to come out. So what happened was they beat me by 1 week.
They got and they were a big group
They
at
were
the
a big
time.
name,
were-
so
they were
and it's
hit-
like, I'm not going to compete with them. And to me, 2 records coming out at the same time, who are they going to play?
Yeah, Fifth Dimension, you said
Absolutely.
Up and Away, and
Right.
Let the Sunshine In and all that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. They were on a roll.
They were a big group.
So we had to go back to the drawing board and decide what to put out. Now, Sweet Laura Lee came up as the next single, which, like I said, I didn't want to lead with that. The track was not as close to the demo as it should have been. It was, too. I don't know. It was like almost like a march kind of thing, but it was slow, and very heavy and definitive. But we put that out. We needed a B-side now.
Yep.
So this is where Nana became. It came into the picture. There was a song that was called "Kiss 'Em Goodbye" that was written. We had an office in Bridgeport above the bus terminal in Bridgeport.
In Connecticut?
Yes, in Connecticut. And it was written as a shuffle. And I remember the song, and I said to Dale, because I was having a little conflicts with Paul at the time, so he wasn't, he was cool towards me.
That's just Paul Lecca and
Yeah,
Dale.
Paul Lecca, and Dale Frazier.
Who
So
are
I
the-
said to Dale, tell Paul that I want to do the Kiss 'Em Goodbye, And he said, okay, because I knew that if I said it, he would have probably just blown it off. So that night, when we went into the studio, the chant wasn't even born yet. We were going over the song, and Paul was, playing the piano, and I was standing there. And when he did the chant, he had all na-nas in it, completely. So when it came to me running it over, I threw the hey heys in, which then it became na 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 hey 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 goodbye,
Yeah.
and it stayed that way. So we went in approximately 7 o'clock that night in the studio in New York City at Mercury Records, and by 5 o'clock in the morning it was totally done, mixed, just the way you hear it on the radio, except for being mastered. Other than that, it was
All
just
of the
way you heard
instruments,
it.
all the
Everything,
vocals,
everything,
the whole-
right. The fade, everything.
Everything was happening.
Right, the break, everything.
Everything was in there. And so who was actually on that recording as it happened?
Okay, that was a drum track from Sugar Sugar, which was a Neil Sedaka song. So it was done, back in those days, it was a loop, eight bar loop, just kept repeating.
So you actually took the drum track from the demo
Sugar
of Sugar
Sugar.
Sugar demo?
Well, no, we
was
had
it-
made a track for Sugar Sugar.
Oh, you
but it
had
never came
recorded
out.
that.
Yeah, it was one of the 4 sides. So that track was done, and then everything was added on top of it. And as it was being done, again, I would say to Dale, if parts came out, I would say to him, that's a good part, man. Tell him to keep that part, that's really good. Because again, if I said it, he would have just blown it off.
But-
So it was built, there was no bass on the record, no guitar on the record. It's all piano and organ overdubs and vibes. And I played the percussion on a board. And then Paul, Dale, and myself sang the backgrounds.
And you did the lead
And I did the
vocal
lead
track
vocal,
through the
yeah,
first
yeah,
half of the
exactly.
song,
Yeah.
and then after that, you're
Yeah, well,
singing
after
together.
everything
Yep.
was done, yeah.
Yeah.
After everything was done, then I went into the studio and, yeah, I did my vocal.
did the straight vocal
It
on it.
was, yeah, it was, I had a good time
So
doing
it was
that.
really an organic type of thing in the studio in which you had this beginning of a song, and then this whole creation came out of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
It grew in the studio.
What I think happened was that I think when Paul and Bob heard this, because Bob was the record company, he was the vice president.
This is Bob
I think-
Reno from
Bob
Mercury.
Reno, exactly. I think when they heard that record, they knew what they had. But me, being Joe Schmo from Bridgeport, you know, and not having any knowledge of the business, you know, he said to me, Gare, you can have both of these. He said, we're going to put them out because the record company loves it. He said, we'll put them out, and whichever one goes, he says, you could be both. He goes, don't worry about it. So I figured, how can I go wrong? 2 shots instead of 1. I said, you know, playing the odds, I said, that's a great way to think about it.
So
But
that,
when the time came, he said that I couldn't be the group because I didn't have a group. But then again, like I said to you, the other discussion that we had, going back, he was supposed to get me a group
yeah.
from an agency that he did business with in New York City. And the group never materialized. But what stays in my head, which I can't get rid of, is the fact that if Nana was supposed to be so bad the way he put it, that it was something he was ashamed of and something that he every time he heard it, he turned it off.
This is
why,
Paul.
Yeah, why couldn't it be the B-side of Sweet Lauralee?
So what happened there was you had actually recorded that, which was going to go out as a solo Garrett Scott record,
Yeah, absolutely.
but because of the record label politics, shall we say, they
Yes.
decided
Right.
to keep Garrett Scott as the Laura Lee record and say, well, this B-side is so strong, we're going to make it an A-side.
Yes.
But we can't put out 2 Garrett Scott records together,
Right.
so we're going to create a name for a group and call it Steam.
Yeah.
And that's going to be basically your solo record, what was
Yeah.
recorded to be your solo
Well, it was
record.
supposed to be my record, right, exactly. And again, I told you I went in the office with Bob Reno, and I spoke to Bob. Matter of fact, Dale was in the office with me. And with the meeting, Bob agreed that I could go out because the first 300,000 or 400,000 records that went out just said Steam. And then he put my name on the label where it said Steam featuring Garrett Scott. And we discussed me going on the road with that band, the road group, and he agreed. He said, yeah.
That would
And
work.
I was very relieved because I said, you know what, at this point, we can launch 2 careers.
Yeah.
You could turn around and have Steam go their way at the end of it, because if you read the articles that they even talked about, they said they were into underground. They said it was bubblegum. They didn't even like what they were playing.
It wasn't their sound, but
It
they were a
wasn't their
group
sound.
that
Yeah.
was also from Connecticut, just like you.
Yeah, exactly.
And guys you knew, and Paul knew, and Dale knew, and you
absolutely.
get...
And for them to be given, like a #1 record and then turn around and start bad rapping it, that makes no sense.
They came to Boston under the strength of it. They were at a club called Katie's, which was part of the Boston Club complex in Kenmore Square, and they had a big sign out with a truck, Steam. And for a week, like the New York Dolls played there for a week.
Really?
Steam played there for a week, and a band Bulldog, which came out of what was the Young
The Rascals.
Bulldog played there at Katie's, so it was an underground haunt. And when the New York Dolls played, Steve Tyler was down there before he was famous, checking out the Dolls. There was such a buzz. So they had the elements. You guys could have launched a really nice career had things were done right.
Yeah, that's the way I felt. I felt that at that point, that was the launching pad, and then I could have gone my way. They could have gone their way. But it didn't happen.
Would have been just like Eric Burden and Wah, which was that same period, that same year, really, when they had the vocalist in the group, and then they did a couple of records together, and then they each went out.
Had only
in their
Eric
own
stayed
directions.
with War.
Well, there
I
you
mean,
go.
that
That's a
was-
separate question, right?
They had a minor hit that was amazing after Spill the Wine.
Yeah.
They're going to take away our music. or
Don't take
something?
away our music. Brilliant song.
Good song, yeah.
And then War had all those hits, but had Eric stayed, because who's the lead singer of War?
Nobody.
Yeah.
That's
Eric
anonymous.
Burden was the personality. You were the personality.
Yeah.
And you pulled off that PBS thing amazingly.
Thank you.
But-
Thank you.
Now, you mentioned a couple of times you actually recorded Sugar Sugar.
Yeah.
Did you give any thought to that, or had that come out by the Archies before you were able to release it?
It's not
Is
that
it-
Sugar
Or is it
Sugar.
a different Sugar Sugar?
It's a Neil Sedaka Sugar.
Oh, okay,
Sugar.
okay.
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
Because the Archies was Jeff Barry, was it?
I believe you're right,
Archies?
Jeff and Ellie.
Yeah.
Ellie Greenwich and Jeff Berry.
So it's just
Yeah.
coincidence it had the same title.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
before,
absolutely.
it was before the Archies, right? The Neil
Yeah.
Sedaka.
Would have been in that same period.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
think Neil's got it on a live album or something.
Okay, yeah, I think you're right. Now you mentioned, that's a good point, yeah. But so anyway, you recorded that. Now, you said you were playing percussion on it. What type of thing, Gary, were you doing on Kiss 'Em Goodbye?
Well, as I said, I was just, fumbling around. There were a set of drumsticks, and the padding on the end of the console, I was tapping on it, and I was playing rhythm. And Paul heard that, and he said, let's put that on there. So they had delivered a Hammond organ, and the Hammond organ was packaged, and it had wood on the bottom to protect it. And we took a piece of, there was a board that fell off of it, so we picked the board up, Paul held it, and we put padding around the tips of the drumsticks, and brought the mic down, and I played the percussion, and that's the percussion that you hear through the entire song. Which now, I hear a lot of records now, but it's done differently. It's done with electronically, depending on whether you have the software for whether it's a keyboard or the percussion pads or whatever.
So again, you made up not only your own drum pattern, but your own instrument during the recording.
Yeah, right.
that-
I tried to market it, but it didn't go anywhere.
That is,
Market it now. When we were at the Record Expo 2 weeks ago, Jay LaFon, my producer from Haverhill, brings him baseballs to sign.
Yeah, that was great.
I thought, Joe, that people brought him baseballs to sign. Jay was like the first.
Yeah, it was first.
there
yeah.
you go, that's
And I
great.
said, that was a great idea.
That is.
Very,
That's
He's
very.
going to
great.
have Gary
Yeah.
DeCarlo baseballs
Yeah.
made to sign.
Yeah.
In
Yeah, you should-
footballs and
You should
basketball.
create your own thing, stamp it with the song title, hey,
Yeah.
Kiss 'Em Goodbye, and your signature,
Yeah.
And then the felt wooden stick, and just capitalize on the
You can
fact that
play on
you
the-
created it. Have a whole array of stuff. Look, I got a signed, right here, people, I have a signed 45 that I paid $1 for at the Record Expo. I think when the guy realized Gary DeCarlo was here, he could have charged me $5, and I would have paid
You
it.
wouldn't have paid anything,
But
right?
I got it for $1,
Well,
and it's
that's
autographed.
great. Now, that is on what label, Joe?
That's
Fontana.
I feel it in my fingers. Fontana, the Trogs label.
So that was on the
Wild thing.
Fontana. Now you...
That's what it started out
Your
as.
solo career was on the Mercury label. Tell us a
Correct.
little bit about how that even came out with two different labels.
In UA.
Well, that came out for some reason. I guess they wanted to launch Fontana at that time, but eventually that became Mercury label also. They were putting it on oldies, packages and stuff
So-
like that, but then they switched it over.
So it was like a subsidiary
Exactly,
under the
of
Mercury
Mercury.
tent,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
for whatever
Right.
reason, they wanted to put this particular record out as a single,
Mm-hmm.
and at the same time, you had the Laura Lee as a solo record
Laura Lee,
on
yeah.
actually what would have been a more major label, the Mercury Records at the time.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Yeah.
Laura Lee on UA?
No.
No, it
Okay.
was on Mercury.
Sorry.
Sweet
What
Laura
was,
Lee.
well, again, though, what I thought was very odd was that at the time there were something like 54 or 55 radio stations in New York City, and the A&R guy for them couldn't get me on one station.
For your record.
Yeah, and I said, how can that be with all these radio stations? So he wanted me to do like record hops and everything, and I said, how can I do a record hop if you don't even have me on?
Nobody knows it.
Yeah. So then one day he comes back and he shows me a playlist, and I looked at the playlist. He goes, see, he goes, you're on a playlist. He had me on a female playlist. I was right under the share.
Oh, wow.
So I said, you're going to tell me the guy listened to this? It's like,
Well, now, here's the flip side of that record, which was actually a song you wrote on Mercury Records, Now That I Love You. Do you remember that one?
which one?
Now That I Love You.
Oh, yeah, that.
Which was the flip side.
Now, this is another thing. I'm glad you brought that up, because Now That I Love You, you remember how Paul would say that it was done to be a B-side so no one would listen to it, and that it was done with that in mind? That's when that was done in mind. Because if you listen to anything that was done at the time of Nana, which was The Magic in You, and my other single, which was I'm Gonna Give You All My Love, you listen to that song, you could tell by the background that it's the same people that did Nana.
Oh, it's the same, yeah.
Same people, same people.
Same group, yeah.
This one was a drum track, and everything fell, and it was awful. It was meant to be awful. I don't know why he wanted to do that, but for some reason, he didn't want any B-sides played.
So they were afraid, in those days, the labels were afraid that the disc jockey would flip the record over and play
Yeah,
the
but that-
B-side, but
that's crazy.
It's sort of hurting yourself.
Yeah, no, that's
Yeah,
crazy.
yeah.
I, as a kid, I listened to many Little Richard things,
yeah.
and that the B-sides were great.
Yeah.
I love both sides of them.
Many records got turned over that way by disc
Yeah.
jockeys, and the B-side was, so
Yeah,
that was almost what you might call, at the time, a throwaway or something, or just something to get the record done.
Yeah.
So they put that on.
But
Now-
see, I would never do that. You know what I mean? If I had total control, I would never do that. That's like people that you buy an album and you may like one or two songs on the entire album.
And
I
the
mean,
rest
what's
of
that?
it is just like they're going
Yeah,
through the
you
motions.
pay all that
so-
money.
so-
That's
so-
what's nice about iTunes. You pick your own thing and.
Now, you mentioned, of course, we talked about you playing the percussive sound on Kiss 'Em Goodbye. Were you actually a drummer growing up?
Yeah, I was. Yeah,
So
my
that-
cousin had a set of drums, and he had bought a new set of drums,
Yeah?
and he gave me his old set.
Oh, boy.
And I used to go to his jobs with him. I was very young. I wasn't maybe 13 years old, and he used to bring me into the clubs, and I would just sit there and listen to him play. He had a little jazz group, and man, I was like in paradise. I
Yeah.
loved it. Yeah, it was great. And then I started playing, and it was cool because like where we lived, I had the drum set up in our living room, and during the summer, like the windows would be open, and
you'd
all
be
the people
crashing.
would be in the park across the street, and they'd be yelling, "Go, Gary, go!"
Oh, boy.
I'd be doing all these.
You must have
Jimmy
driven your
Cruiser
mother
type
crazy, though.
solos and stuff, But yeah, I loved it, and I tried to get people, my friends and stuff, to start like a vocal group, because at the time I used to watch Dick Clark all the time.
Oh, yeah.
And I said, like, wow, because I was very into music. I loved when Alan Freed started his first show, and it was called Moondog. And I used to sit there by the radio, and then all of a sudden it would come on, And it wasn't even called rock and roll yet because he didn't come up with that term yet. And then eventually it became rock and roll. And I used to live every night just to listen to that music. It was so cool, so good. And I would say to my friends, come on, man, we gotta start a group. So, I kicked around. The friends didn't want to do it. I kicked around playing drums, and I got into a few groups, and it was fun until I got into the stand-up vocal group, which was the three names: the Chateaus, the Glenwoods, and the Citations. And then we put out records with that, and a few of them did fairly well, I guess, from what I was told. I don't know because I haven't seen 1 cent. So I don't know.
Well, now, which was the Chateaus the group you recorded as, or did you record also as the Glenwoods and the Citations at the time?
Well, yeah, I think the Glenwoods was the first record, and that was That's the Way It'll Be, and the B-side was Elaine. I sang Elaine, but you won't even recognize my voice back then.
Mm-hmm.
And from what I understand, both sides of that record were getting played, and they were saying that it was selling for, I guess, a fairly decent amount of money, for that time. I don't know, $750 or something like that, $850 for a single, and which I never even knew. And then we did Summer's Here, right, which was the Chateaus, right?
Yeah, that's the Chateaus, yeah.
Yeah, and let me see, the...
Honest I Will?
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Okay. So that's...
Chateaus, the Glenwoods, the Citations. Citations, we performed as the Citations. I don't think we cut anything. I can't remember that.
But you did at least 245s in the
Yeah,
doo-wop
yeah,
style.
and again, this one
during that
was
period.
done, and again, I actually wrote that song, but we were having contract problems at the time, and as a group, we discussed it, and we said, look, man, we don't want to have anything happen contract-wise that would interfere with this, so we'll put it in someone else's name. So naturally, it wound up being in Paul's name, and this guy at the time, Nick DeLelio, who was acting as a manager, but basically he was just a friend.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He had no connections whatsoever.
He'd carry your vocal cords for you. to the
Yeah,
next-
kind of like that. Yeah, it was
So
just a
it's not
friend.
the Chateau, it's not under the Chateaus.
Yeah,
It
it
is.
is. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I ask you the demo that got the deal for, let me see here.
That's the Chateaus record on...
Hello, guys,
Coral-
there we are.
Coral
Hey,
label.
this is called Summer's Here, School's Through the Chateaus. I want to ask you, what's the demo that got the deal for this, and how did you get signed to Coral? It's an integral part of the show.
You know what? I don't know. I remember going, and we auditioned. That's basically how it happened. We went
Oh, so you
there.
auditioned at the record label?
Yeah, we auditioned live. That's what we did back then. We used to door knock 1650 Broadway, Tin Pan Alley.
And that's where Coral was?
No. But I'm saying that's what we used to do. So when we went into this specific office, we went there, and they said, "What do you do?" And if I remember right, we were in a room, I guess, where they had meetings and stuff, and the guy was sitting there, and he said, "Let me hear you." We sang, and he said, "Okay," and he wanted to record us.
Felix
So-
Cavalier and Lou Reed and others have told us similar stories.
Uh-huh,
In those
yeah.
days, you didn't have a demo.
No, we didn't have a demo. No, not at all. So then they heard the song, and they said, "Yeah, let's do it." And he came up with that tuba thing, Baum, soma, zeta, ba, you know what I mean? It was
Ooh,
like-
yeah, classic
So it was,
doo-wop
yeah,
thing.
it was.
So with that, how many instruments would they usually have with you? Like just a handful of instruments, like playing with you, or was some of it the a cappella?
Yeah, this
or how
was
would it
totally different because this guy that did the arranging and stuff on there was very, very big there, but he he did more standard type things.
That's Henry Jerome.
Yeah,
Okay.
he did more
He was
standard
more
type
into the,
music and
so you got a
stuff.
different sound out of the
Different
record
sound
as a
than,
result of that.
different
Yeah.
sound than what we did.
Yeah. So really, in a way, one might say, well, first of all, just to go back to the other one, that one, the previous one, Elaine, was on Jubilee Records?
Jubilee,
And
yeah.
was that Elaine your first record, or was this your first record, just to be clear on that?
No, Elaine, and That's the Way It'll Be was
Was the
yes.
first record, that
Yes.
was on Jubilee. And they both, like you guys would just drive up from Connecticut for the day and knock on doors in the Brill Building area?
Absolutely.
What they, like legendary Brill Building?
Absolutely, and they'd say, "What do you do?" We're a vocal group, and they said, "Let's hear you." Oh, we'd sing.
And did
When I'm in New
you,
York, sometimes I touch the building.
there you go.
I do, literally.
That's great.
Yeah, there was a lot of people went in and out
It's
of there,
sacred
man.
ground.
Absolutely.
Do you know where Coral Records was physically in New York?
No, I don't remember. You know,
Well, it says a subsidiary of Decca Records on
Oh.
the label there, Joe.
Yeah.
So,
The label that turned down the Beatles.
there you go. There you go. That's another good one. So anyway, were all of these four sides written by you and other members of the groups?
well, the actual writer in the group was a guy named Frank Borelli, and he has moved to California, and I haven't heard. I don't know what's up with Frank, if he's alive or what, because everybody else has passed away. Basically, in the group, I guess I'm the only one left besides Frank, if he's still around.
Yeah. Oh my.
Because I had always thought about saying, like, man, we should get together and just do a show.
Dude,
It'd be
yeah.
great, you know?
Yeah, you could be on another one of those. You could be on both the 50s show with
Yeah,
them,
yeah,
the
exactly.
PBS, and then on
Yeah.
the 60s show.
You know, we
with
had a
your
lot of
records,
friends
yeah.
that used to come out to the clubs and see us and stuff,
I know.
and you know, we used to really pack them in. And
Did you basically play in Connecticut in your hometown
yeah,
area?
we played in Connecticut until Paul talked Dale into going into New York City, and then the group broke up. That was it.
Now, it must have been when you were doing the Brill Building stuff, you must have had a lot of people just slam the door in your face, so to speak, or would most of them give you a listen, or most of them, we got 100 groups like you? You know, the guys, a little bit of everything,
A
huh?
little bit of everything, yeah, absolutely. But you know, back then, again, it was different. You know, the club scene, from what I understand from people today, it's very, very different. You know, I go in and I do some things for friends. I just go in and there's a band there, and I'll go in and they ask me, you know, will you sing? And I say, sure. And I, you know, I go in and I do that. But these are basically like Beatle Expo type things, and like they did a Davy Jones memorial, right? Maybe 3 weeks ago, something like that. And you know, I went in and I did that for Charles Rosenet, who was a friend of mine.
Oh, yeah.
Nice guy. And that I don't mind doing that. There's another guy, I don't know if you know. You know Ed Rainieri?
No.
You don't know Ed? He does Beatle Ed show in Massachusetts. Pennsylvania, I'm sorry.
What's it
Yeah,
called?
Beatle Ed. It's called Beatle Ed. His name is Ed, E-D-D, and he puts it at the end, so it's called Beatle Ed.
Oh, I think he's on Facebook with me.
Yeah, he is.
All right, so Beatle Ed, and
Yeah.
then there's Michael Lapidus. Do you know Lapidus?
No, I don't think so.
So Michael Lapidus does Beatles shows, Charles Rosenet does Beatles shows, now Beatle Ed.
Beatle Ed,
Right,
yeah.
Facebook, it's funny because
Yes.
they're on Facebook with us, and
Yes.
a lot of us don't even have a clue what they're doing.
No, but I got to be friends with Ed. Ed interviewed me. I did a show for Charles in Stamford, Connecticut. It was a Beatle Expo. And the reason that I was on the show was because we knocked the Beatles out of #1, you know, with Come Together and Something. So that was my tie-in to be there. And
That's interesting. So Nana, Hey Hey, Kiss 'Em Goodbye followed something
Yes.
and Come Together, one
yeah.
of the best-known Beatle singles ever.
And I'll tell you,
and
I was
knocked
shocked.
them out of the number.
I was shocked because I said, "There's no way we're going to go past them," you know. But I got to meet Ed Rainieri there that night. He was very excited. He wanted to interview me, and I had never met him. So Charles introduced me. He interviewed me, and we got to be friends. And he put stuff on his Facebook, and so as we became friends, something happened up in that area in Pennsylvania where they had floods, and a lot of people lost their homes, and a lot of damage. And he asked me if I would come up and do a benefit for those people. part of a show package that there were two bands there that were Joe Nardone and the Starfires, two groups that worked that area and very big at the time, and now I guess they do just specials and stuff. So I agreed. I said I would go, and again he had me at the end of the show, the night, to say goodbye, and like when he introduced me, that's what he said. He said, we're going to say goodbye to all the damage and the hurricane and again, the people were all standing up and going back and forth. It was great.
It's one of those songs that everybody knows and everybody feels like they're part of it because of the style of play out on it. Well, on that record, in addition to the single on Hey Hey Kiss 'Em Goodbye, which was put out, as we said, under the name Steam,
Right.
there was also an album that came out, also under the group name Steam, but you're credited as the songwriter or co-songwriter on the album. So I just thought we could go through and see if there are any other tracks on there that have any particular thought comes to your mind on, as whether that you like them better or worse, or they have a particular meaning, or maybe you sing
Well,
on
yeah,
something.
I gotta make you love me was something that I had a major part in putting together, and I liked it, and that was the follow-up to Nah Kiss 'Em Goodbye.
The second single.
Yeah, but I was supposed to, at that point, I was supposed to sing that, and he said he didn't like the way I sang it, just like he didn't like the way I sang It's Magic in You, and so I had to do demos. He wanted me to do, first of all, he wanted me to sing the entire album, which I wouldn't do. And I said, I'm not going to sing the album and then have these guys go out and pretend that they're me. I didn't want to do that. And I mean, like the, what was that, the group, the two guys, Milli Vanilli.
Yeah.
Remember when the public found out? And it's like you're fooling them.
Yeah.
Saying that you're the singer and you're not. And that's basically what he wanted me to do. So when I said that, he really shut me off. That was it. And basically, he said to me, well, then make demos, and so that the guy could learn the songs from me. And basically that's what I did. But at that point, that's when I said, you know what, it's time for me to exit, because this.
So some of the songs, they might have mixed some of your demo vocal into, and others they might not have. Is it that type of thing? You can hear yourself coming through?
I mean, I was part writer with all of these,
on
because
all of the
we
tracks.
put input into everything together. But as we got into the album, Paul really pulled up on the reins, and he wanted total control. See, Nana and It's the Magic in You was a collaboration between the three of us, Paul,
Yep.
Dale, and myself. Whereas these, he got to where he said, this is it. I mean, why in the world would you want to put a Nana chant on almost every single song on the album? I mean, that's overkill.
So that's,
Makes no sense.
That's
but
right.
he was in charge. That's what he wanted to do.
He wanted just to
And
to
you know what I mean?
work
There
it.
was a ballad, for example. I think Dale sang, what was it? Not Love and Affection. Come On Home, Girl. Dale sang that.
Oh, so the third member of your triumvirate
Yeah,
did the vocal on that, the
because
lead
right.
vocal.
Yeah, Dale sang that, and another thing. These were all studio musicians on this. This was not even the road group that played on this.
So this was
So
something.
these were all. Yeah, this was a guitar player from a group that I worked with called the Orchids. His name was Lionel Chamberlain Link, in other words. And he was a great guitar player. And he came in, and there was another guy that I played in a group with too, that's a great guitar player. I can't even think of his name now.
Yeah, but there was another guy who you guys knew, or you knew
Yeah,
personally.
absolutely. I
separately.
knew him, and I
Yeah.
asked them if they would like to play on it, and they said, yeah. And then the rest of the guys were just studio people.
New York studio
Right,
guys, pros.
right. And again, like the album came out, and they got all the credit for it. And there's an article that I should have brought with me, because it says even in the article that came out when the song happened, it was on the front page of the Bridgeport Post, and then inside, when you opened it, there were pictures of the entire group playing and doing their thing on stage, and they had captions and saying, so and so's playing percussion, and he did it on the record, and it was. And then I was credited with writing some of the songs.
Some of the material.
Yeah, some of the material.
So it was a diminishing role.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was like I was a cigarette, it was being played out. I don't know.
But you said you sang, your vocal is on most of I've Got to Make You Love Me, is that?
No, I didn't sing.
You weren't on that one?
No,
okay.
no, I only sang Nana. If you look on the back of the album, they have the asterisks. And that's the only thing that I sang on the album, because of the conflict and because of what was going on with Paul. And when I said I didn't want to sing the entire album and have them go out and make believe that they sang it, that was it. He didn't want to talk to me or anything. I think I already told you that he put up a paper like that. We had an office where we used to write. And he put on the thing. There was this kid, Joe Messina at the time, Dale Frazier, and myself. And he put a sign up. Only Joe Messina and Dale Frazier were allowed in the office. So I mean, what was I supposed to do? Hang around in the hallway?
So it was a little bit of an uncomfortable situation.
Yeah,
growing
absolutely. That's
there,
why I wanted out of it.
Even though you'd been in the chateaus together and you'd done things together, but
see, Paul was our piano player. He became our piano player for the Chateaus, and we were building up a book of songs. We had something like 155 songs, and we had choreography to them all, and he began playing piano with us, and basically that was his role. But then, like I told you before, he taught Dale to go into New York City with him. He was being mentored by Bob Reno. And Bob had already had years of experience in the business.
He was a pro in the record business.
Absolutely, and he was very savvy and smart, and he knew the ins and outs of contracts and that type of stuff. I didn't know anything. I didn't know anything at all. So I figured that Paul was going to watch my back because he was my friend for so many years, but that didn't happen.
And of course, he had some success with the
yes, he did.
Lemon Pipers as well as the
he had
Peppermint Rainbow. So he was kind
But he went on even more than that.
Did
he
he?
had Harry Chapin, Cats in the Cradle.
Oh my!
He had Gloria Gaynor. He had REO Speedwagon. He had quite a few things. I'm not trying to diminish his record or things that he did. I'm talking about my experience with him. And anyone that's done business with him doesn't have a very good thing to say. Believe me.
It's a tough business.
Yeah, exactly. But when you consider somebody your friend, especially the fact, it's like I mentioned before. For example, if you go to a doctor and you tell this doctor how you feel, you turn around, you say to him, "This is my symptoms. What do you feel I should do?" He tells you. Now you take his advice, or you go to another doctor. Now put that same scenario together with him being my manager, my producer, and my publisher. I'm going to listen to what he says.
But unfortunately, in the music world of that period, it kind of creates conflicts of interest that people don't. No matter how close people are, it causes problems. But we should mention that both of your longtime friends there, Paul. And Dale Frazier, both passed away, correct?
Yes.
So it's
Dale was
the trio of you. Yes. So it's kind of puts a certain perspective on us, doesn't it?
Absolutely. This is my point. That I'm going to be 70 years old, man, in June.
Oh wow, you're looking great. Wow, how do you do that?
Well, it's like I said on the other interview. I didn't get a lot of work, so you know what I mean. I'm not worn out yet. But the only point I'm trying to make is that I'm trying to show people that it's me, and have them understand and believe that. And I mean, if I can go out and do some shows and stuff, but I mean, at this age, I'm not going to be able to do what I could have done back then, and I can't get those years back now.
And who can? and who can. We all wish we could do it today.
Yeah, but-
if we could take our wisdom, our supposed wisdom we've gathered over the
Right.
years, and go back to when we were 25 and have that energy, wouldn't we
Right,
have
but this
different
is
lives, all of
something,
us?
this is something that
This-
people
this-
have been in the business their entire life, and they haven't had a number one. This is
No.
still going 43 years later.
It's going stronger. I mean, the thing about this song is that, Na Na Hey Hey Kiss Him Goodbye, is that it has had so many lives,
Yeah.
first as a number one record that, as you pointed out, displaced the Beatles on the charts, and then as an oldie, and then as a chant at every sports stadium. How did that sports stadium chant begin? I mean,
I can't remember her name. She played
Yeah.
organ at Kaminsky Park,
Chicago.
Chicago, yes. And the sheet music was on her organ, and I guess there was a low in the game, and she started to play it, and the people started to sing it, and she started doing it on a regular basis, and it became their team song. And they actually gave her a gold record for that.
Because she had revived
Yeah,
it, and
because
it
she had
started selling
revived it,
again,
yeah.
it started getting played
Yeah.
again. But isn't that, it's almost the same organic way that the song developed and the record developed in the studio with
Yeah,
you
yeah,
guys.
exactly.
And then she sort
Yeah.
of just had that in their head and had the melody and
Right.
started playing it, and then the people started chanting on. That's so great.
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know?
yeah, absolutely.
And-
Bananarama redid it
And they
at
had a
that time.
big
And,
single hit rhythm.
Yes, and it was
single
number
later.
one in England,
Britain.
and then they brought it over here, but for some reason, there was split airplay. The other camp tried to put something out, and they
Well,
clashed, and their record didn't really do that well here.
people remember the original over here probably,
Yeah.
and there's no substitute for the
Well,
real
I'm
thing.
glad you
Let's
feel
put it that way.
I'm glad you feel that way. Also, the Nylons did it, a group from Canada, and
Nylons,
it was like an a cappella thing, and...
So they were getting back to you guys in the chateaus, but you do updates.
Yeah, exactly, and I understand that Dion and the Belmonts did it also.
Now, were they an influence on you as a young man, Dion and the Belmonts, being a
Oh, yeah, I used to listen to Dion. Yeah, matter of fact, Dion, from what I was told, used to come up to the club and listen to our band. We used to play a few clubs up in the New York area, Mamaroneck and a club in Banksville. It has a couple of different names like Deer Crest and the Country House, but a lot of people used to come up there, and that's where I met Lenny Welch, as a matter of fact. Up there, he was doing a show up there, and then I got to see him. We did a couple of TV shows together, and we became friends. And unfortunately, I haven't seen him in a long time, but he's another nice guy that could sing very well.
The singer Lenny Welch.
Yes.
So just one of those guys you run into in the business, and you
Yeah,
sort of
yeah,
you
absolutely,
get two of
yeah.
you take to each other. And now, were the clubs that you would have been playing in the doo-wop era, were they more like what we might call supper clubs or nightclubs, or was it more, were there actually rock clubs at that time?
Well, later when what happened was, at the very beginning, we would only do like nursing homes and hospitals. So when the group was about to break up, I said to them, look, we've been rehearsing for years up here. We got a good book of songs. Let's go out into the club with it. Let's show people what we've been doing up here all these years. We used to rehearse 5 nights a week, 7 to 11 every single night, and then on the weekend play the nursing homes. And I said to them, after all these years, you're just going to kick it aside? I said, let's go and show our friends what we've been doing. So we started working a club in Fairfield called the Roadside Inn, and a lot of our friends would come down. We would pack the place, and we had a lot of fun down there. And that lasted for a while, and then the group split and became 2 groups, and then I went on my own, started a group called Gary and the Coachman, and I started working at this club in Mamaroneck called the Canada Lounge, and that's where I became very friendly with the group, the Orchids, and eventually I became lead singer of the Orchids, which was a big horn band, and I thought they were very good, very good.
And you know what? I'd like to pick the story up, but I'm so tired from asking you so many questions
Yeah.
and being on camera so much today. No, we only have like a minute left.
Okay.
But we'd like to invite you back.
Absolutely.
In fact, we might invite you back tomorrow. Ladies and gentlemen, Visual Radio with Joe Tortelli, Gary DeCarlo.
Thank you.
And you know what? We might do a part 2 if we have the time. So Boy, it's just an honor. I was telling your daughter in there, it's one of my all-time favorite songs. I can't believe I get to meet the guys who sang Sunny, Miracles, Kiss 'Em Goodbye, three of my all-time favorite songs. It's an honor. It really is, Dan.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. Thank both of you very
Great
much.
job.
Another minute, another hour, I'd transport you here if I had the power on board the starship